Hey there, gaming fans. My Muñaños Gamer. This is Jesus from Jesus Gaming, and I welcome you to yet another episode of Continue News and Gaming. And today's episode, we're discussing about my experience. I know that this is the internet nowadays, and we are like week and a half after the launch of Death Stranding 2 on the beach. And of course, I wanted to share my experience with both the first Death Stranding games and my experience so far with Death Stranding 2 on the beach. And also, yes, I had to talk about Xbox in this episode. So buckle up. Here we go. If you have been following me through the weeks of the launch of Death Stranding 2 on the beach, you might know that I was ironically sick at home, and I needed to obviously do some precautions not to having my family being infected with the disease. I have been crowned for the third time, and crowned, you might know what I mean because I don't want to get the bad sides of social media, including YouTube and Spotify. So I'm not entering in details, but I got a lot of time about retaking a gameplay that for some reason, I decided to stop playing right between 2019 and 2020. And I'm talking about Death Stranding. Death Stranding originally launched in 2019, and I think that was the year that Google Stadia and some other big profile launch of gaming preceded all, or actually succeeded the launch of Death Stranding, and that is why I kind of make the game being lost in my new game backlog that I shamefully have nowadays. So, in terms of making up the time or the extra free time that being isolated while I have been trying to heal myself from the disease, yeah, I took advantage on having to tackle the first game and waiting and actually try to finish the game a bit later after Death Stranding 2 on the beach got launched. So, in retrospective, when Death Stranding launched back in 2019, definitely there was some division within the gaming industry, especially with Hideo Kojima's fandom. For those who doesn't know, Hideo Kojima is the veteran gaming developer that once was a big name at Konami until the very last decade when Konami decided to serve all relationship with Hideo Kojima, including relinquish or making him relinquish his VP position after a fallout during the development of Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, which rumor says is that Konami was kind of in a crossroad between trying to keep making AAA video games or trying to make the movement favoring more mobile gaming, which Hideo Kojima was not a good variable in the equation. And in my opinion, time did have Hideo Kojima being correct that Konami shouldn't focus on mobile gaming. But that's another topic for another day. Definitely it is what could happen and what had been behind the exit of Hideo Kojima from Konami. But returning to Death Stranding, Death Stranding is the first video game that Hideo Kojima produced with his own founded Kojima production, which is not a outsourced or a spin-off original Kojima production team from Konami. This was a brand new studio which had the audacity to make a AAA video game, one with a big budget. And definitely, many players get polarized with the unconventional walking simulator that the gameplay feels. Uh, to London Read, you play Sam Porter Bridges, being performed by both digital acting or movement scanning, body scanning, if you will, and voiced by actor Norman Reedus. and it's a postman tasked with the reconnecting of isolated cities in apocalyptic America. It's slow pacing, heavy inventory management, and intangible story beats were an acquired taste. And this is a kind of a summary of what you have of people thinking about the game and the first impression at all about Death Stranding 2. And critics praise its haunting last games, its deep social asynchronous mechanics, the emotional core, of course, because Hideo Kojima likes to make video games to actually feels like it is a movie or a full motion picture. So uh, and you can feel the special bond that Sam shared with his BB, baby in a jar, so you can carry to the Ted ghost in the game called BT. But many found the repetitive back and forth a little bit exhausting, even if the narrative twist keeps them engaged. And trust me, with Hideo Kojima, it's not always easy or at first glance you get the whole picture of the lore within the game. The game is immerse heavy storytelling, and I don't blame you if you don't get it on the first time, or if you're beating the game and you still have like some lagoons or loopholes in understanding the lore behind the game. I don't blame you if you look for resources on the internet, because I did it so last week when I finished my first walkthrough on the original Death Stranding. Now, moving fast forward this past June 26, 2025, Kojima returns with Death Stranding 2 on the beach. It picks up 11 months later with Sam's living in a secluded life near the Mexico border alongside Lou, the grown up BB, and a character which is another important character of the original game named Fragile, recruits him to connect Mexico and the Australia to the UCA network. So I'm trying not to go full spoiler here. So actually, I'm inviting you on playing both games. Not necessarily you need to play the first game in the context that the Death Stranding 2 on the beach doesn't give you any details or at least a summary of what you might expect. Story speaking about Death Stranding first, but of course, to understand the mechanics and why there has been some difference between the first and the second game, it is recommended that you should play the first game. So, if you play the game, you will notice that traversal remains the heart of the series, but on the beach, or Death Stranding 2 on the beach, tweaks nearly every system. The distance between the limits feels shorter, the terrain more varied, and traversal tools more plentiful. Ladders, zip lines, and vehicles really take the edge off the slog without removing the tension entirely. And yes, at least in my first 11 hours at the game, I kind of feel like, okay, this is getting repetitive from the first game, but immediately after you take the roll with it, or you go roll with it, if you will, you notice that it's kind of a more like a seamless experience versus the first game, and especially if you're playing back to back like I'm doing right now. As of the record of this, for the transparency of this episode, I haven't finished the walkthrough on Death Stranding 2 on the beach yet, but I think that I got the whole picture and I can feel the difference between the first and second game. And yes, I think that one of the main feedbacks that I assume that Kojima Production got from the original game is that yeah, if you're going to be doing delivery walking simulator, at least make something like a little more balanced where the player feels like kind of rewarded, or maybe has some incentive. And I think that the incentive is that there are some RPG elements where you can develop more easily and more rapidly, improvements about Sam's stamina or the tools that you're used if you're doing especially heavy cargo when you're pretty much up to a long travel. So that's one of the things that I feel that Death Stranding 2 on the beach improves so much from the first game. Yet you still have to plan every mission. We stormproof your loadout, pack blocks grenade for BTs or a tranquilizer sniper rifle for human threats. On the beach is far more gamey than its predecessor, and that's a welcome change for many players, and I want to insist on that. So again, to better understand the perspective and some of the terms that I'm naming here, definitely you should check the first game. In the story and character aspect, the sequel's narrative is tighter and more emotional, while the original aired its revelation in slow, like a TV season like drips, of course, and again, this is Hideo Kojima. Everything feels like a motion picture or a TV series. Death Stranding 2 on the beach keep the pace brisker. New characters get their moments, but Sam and Lou's father's daughter Bon Arcos the story like it is in the first game. Of course, fans of the original will appreciate the return of known characters, while newcomers will enjoy a more cohesive plot, less bogged down by exposition. So, yes, the game is kind of friendly for new players that haven't tried the first game yet. So, there's again my recommendation to play the first game, but if you will, you can start right away with Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I think one of the biggest things that the internet really got glimpse is the part of visuals, graphics, and audio. And technically, on the beach is a standout. There's no denying that Kojima's use of the Decima engine delivers a photorealistic vista, snow-capped peaks, red sandstorm, desert, and dynamics weather that isn't just eye candy, but affects gameplay. For the non-tech savvy, Decima engine is the very first, not the first, I should say that this is the very same game engine that Guerrilla Games, a PlayStation studio, uses for the games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, and the latest Killzone games. And with the soundtrack now by Woodkid alongside Ludwig Forcell, hits those emotional crescendo perfectly. The camera pullback moments with a song kicking in remain one of the game's best audiovisual spectacles, and this is something that you notice from the first game. And since I think and I believe since Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, Hideo Kojima has been kind of being selective and really inclusive with his taste of music within this creation, and Death Stranding is not an exception, and it was actually a big highlight on this aspect. So I want to close out with a final verdict. Death Stranding 2 on the beach doesn't reinvent Kojima's vision, to be honest, but it refines his less log, more spectacle. It's arguably his most accessible and action driven sequel yet, without losing the soul of the original. Yes, it can be a lot of struggling at first, especially in long distance deliveries. And if you're a fan of action adventure from start to finish, but include gunplays, a lot of shooting and killing enemies, Death Stranding 2 on the beach is not necessarily your perfect game for this. There are missions, of course, that you play like you're technically Solid Snake. Uh, yeah, like a direct comparison with a Kojima game, but definitely there's a space for everyone. Those who like exploring, those who are graphic hoarders to uh see the spectacle of background rendering and the panorama of the open world of Death Stranding 2 on the beach. But it give this if you give this game a chance, you love it. You probably adore Death Stranding 2 on the beach. My personal perspective and reason for this final verdict, like I said before, I see some of the difference mechanically not. There's no definite difference between the first and the second game in the mechanics perspective, with the exception of the inclusion of improving Sam's stamina tools like it was an RPG games. I think that's one of the compelling things, and the rewarding aspect to make me feel like I'm not wasting my time or stressing this, because it's not that I didn't enjoy the game, especially the first game, but there was a moment that I feel like in a desperation, especially in some levels that you practically need to cover the whole freaking map in like 1 to 3 takes or orders or mission, if you will, and kind of it's kind of gets you to a desperation, like if there's any endpoint to this, or there any light at the end of the tunnel. But so far, I didn't feel that way playing Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I think that Hideo Kojima got a great feedback and a great perspective on how people reacted to the first game. And I think that he got to rebalance things about his vision as an artist and the reality of the taste for our gamers. So once again, the game Death Stranding 2 on the beach was released this past June 2025, specifically June 26, 2025. For the time being, it is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. I don't rule out that it might happen like it was in the first game. The game will remain console exclusive for the PlayStation 5, but maybe a year or a year and a half, or maybe later than a year, we probably might be seeing the game head into PC. In the case of the first game, it was published by 505 Games for the gaming perspective, or PC gaming perspective, I should say. So I don't rule out that it might happen to Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Well, there has been kind of difficult days within the Xbox gaming community and Microsoft gaming community, and we got some horrible news within Microsoft. And let's get some perspective first here. It is normal to hear companies doing layoff. Layoff is not something illegal. Layoffs are due a necessity because a company, you don't create a company to give away things for free, or not having like a in mind for not thinking on profit if you're not a non-profit organization. So for profit organization needs to have some reorganization, some restructuring. But in terms of Microsoft doing like almost 9,000 job cuts so far in the year, and the latest reaching up to 6,000, and Microsoft Gaming and Xbox having the worst part of this by this week, definitely it doesn't look good for the public relationship perspective. But I think that it will be not fair if I don't include the big news back in June 2025, and it was the celebration of 20 years of partnership between Microsoft and AMD, particularly with Xbox, and all the graphical processing that all the hardware from Xbox, starting from the Xbox 360, was indeed power up by all things that come from AMD. And back in June 19, 2025, Xbox President Sarah Bond announced a strategic multi-year partnership with AMD to co-engineer silicon for the next generation Xbox console and first-party handheld. AMD's roadmap extends beyond consoles, as the company co-announced, which covers handheld PC and cloud devices with promises of 20% raster performance uplifts over RDNA 4, and 2 times the gains in ray tracing and artificial intelligence, thanks to the upcoming UDNA architecture, which is basically AMD pressing more on graphical processing using artificial intelligence. So this is the way that Microsoft, Xbox, and AMD celebrated 20 years of partnership, reassuring that the future of Xbox hardware will include, of course, more processing, more AMD. It has with a tease of two devices like a living room console and a handheld, both fully backward compatible with the existing Xbox library. And this marks a turnaround from earlier 2025's rumor that first party handhelds were shelved. While technically, this rumor is kind of a 50-50 because people are thinking like the Rock Alley Xbox series of PC gaming handheld that was announced a month ago was kind of the offering that Xbox has. So it's really interesting. All this announcement, like a few weeks after the Xbox Game Show, right in the weekend of the Summer Game Fest. So basically, this is good news for those who believe that maybe Microsoft is double thinking about the hardware efforts and expectations within the Xbox branding. And yes, this marked a turnaround from earlier 2025 rumors, like I said before. And on the other side, or at least in the side of AMD, CEO Lisa Su confirmed that the handheld will be real. Both devices will leverage novel AMD tech like the Sense 6 cores with the RDNA 5 GPUs and perhaps a dedicated NPUs, maybe to aiming to blur the line between Xbox, Windows PC, and even other PC storefronts. And yes, we heard about the rumor that maybe the next Xbox console is a hybrid of a console and a PC, or a PC fully dedicated on gaming and will have a special Windows version that will be completely gaming only. And let's have the perspective that since the original Xbox, all Xbox firmware, including the Xbox 2001, Xbox 360, and the Xbox One S, One X, Series S, and Series X all had like a pretty dialed down to gaming Windows CE version. And from some gaming historical perspective, this firmware, or the heavily gaming modified Windows CE version, was actually what Microsoft originally offered Sega to be the operating system of what we now know as the Sega Dreamcast. So yeah, I think that in the future I had to cover this. Definitely, it's something interesting to highlight for gaming history and including Microsoft history as a pioneer or a big face in the gaming. And with this, we go a little 2 weeks later, and by July 2, Microsoft confirming the rumors that it was cutting out like 9,000 jobs, or the 4% of its global workforce, which last time it was checked, it was around 228,000 employees globally. And the significant impact, or at least 6,000 of those jobs, impacted Microsoft Gaming and Xbox Game Studio and all the umbrella of internal teams. Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer called it a move to remove layers of management, streamline operation, and focus on high priority growth areas, even though the Xbox gaming hours and players are at an all time high. And not only that, Microsoft's performance at the New York stock is also all time high. And I think it's one of the top five profitable companies of this year, 2025, which, like I said at the beginning of this section, definitely is not a good look in the public relationship eyes. But as a company and entrepreneurship perspective, layoffs are unfortunately are not avoidable in terms of whatever the reason it is, which reportedly the reason is that Microsoft is looking for space of having artificial intelligence to be the backbones of its complete operation. And it's not only Microsoft Gaming, it's all about Windows, Azure, Microsoft 365 for the office appliance and solutions and OEMs, everything that Microsoft is working, there has to be space for AI. And unfortunately, this includes also jobs, this includes tasks, and this includes revision of all products. Now, focusing directly on the gaming perspective, many areas were directly affected. There was nothing within Microsoft Gaming and Xbox Game Studio that wasn't directly hit. There has been report that of all the Xbox Gaming Studios and Activision Blizzard, of course, the worst teams that got the big impact where Cinemax from Activision, Raven, Call of Duty Warzone is made by almost the principal studios behind many of the Call of Duty subseries, but Raven is kind of the main team behind Call of Duty Warzone. That was the team within Activision that got hit hard. Third 10, the people behind Forza Series games, the team of Keen, the makers of Candy Crush, were also impacted. And there were like a closure of a studio named The Initiative, which basically were founded, or the main task that the studio had was collaborating with Crystal Dynamics for making the reboot of Perfect Dark, which effectively got canceled. Also, Rare was Impact and Everwild, new intellectual property that was in development. And the first one, since the remake or reboot of Battletoads and Sea of Thieves got canceled, also another game that got canceled was Cinemax Online's multiplayer online game that apparently even Phil Spencer was really upbeat about it, and unfortunately, it will never see the light of the day. Also, there was kind of a confusion between many fans and Kojima Productions. There was kind of a confusion between fans and gaming fans on why all these layoffs and cuts within Microsoft Gaming should have affected OD. For those who doesn't know, OD is the upcoming horror game from Kojima Production, which will include top Hollywood star as protagonist. And the confusion was that the game is slated to be Xbox Game Pass Cloud exclusive, but the confusion was that no, Kojima Production is not part of Xbox Game Studio. It just happened that the team that actually does funding on third party studios was also affected. And I think it was Romero Games Studio, which they claimed that they had to close its door because uh, Microsoft cut all the fundings to a non-naming project that was going to be an Xbox exclusive. So the eyes roll on Kojima Productions and OD, but apparently the funding for ODs for now is safe. In my opinion, I don't believe that Kojima or Hideo Kojima, better speaking, will give up on OD. I think that Kojima might take the loss if Xbox or Microsoft gaming decides to just forgo the game, and maybe Kojima will look for Sony or establish a company like Take Two. Another effect of the layoff of Microsoft, unfortunately, included that Turn 10, the studio behind Forza games, was cut in a 50%, practically leaving the studio in bare bones status. And it pretty much will say the future of Forza is kind of a blurry one at best, because it means that the Turn 10 studio will become just a support studio, maybe to extend the quality of life of all the recent Forza game, including Forza Motorsport. So I think that this was really an unpleasant early July 2025 surprise, mainly with all the positive things that you have been seeing on Xbox. And these rulings, bold horror plans, then Swiss cuts highlights Microsoft's balancing act, investing billions in AI and silicon while pruning underperforming or non-core studio projects. It's a reminder that even gaming giants must adapt to shifting market realities. Which bring me to the question is that if Xbox is losing its identity, and not all, and I have this question in mind for weeks now, and not just because of the layoffs that happened in early July. I think that many people has been kind of questioning what's the mind of Microsoft. Uh, in reality, I think that we are going to an end of the platform exclusive era. I think that one of the key things that people believe that Xbox is losing its identity is the lack of importance of doing more exclusives. And honestly, I think Starfield is the last game that was originally launched on Xbox and has remained Xbox only game, of course, with the exception of PC. But in perspective, a console is still locked in an Xbox console. But I don't think that platform exclusivity should be taken as if Xbox is losing its identity, because if that's the reality of things, or that's our rationality of calling a company losing its identity, I think the PlayStation lost it too when they began publishing their own games to PC via Steam and Epic Games. Uh, yeah, if that's the case, then PlayStation already lost the its identity. And I think that there was kind of a twist of event when surprisingly Arrowhead Studio announced that an Xbox Series S and X version of Helldivers 2, a completely PlayStation Studio funded game, will be arriving on Xbox Series S and X. No, we're not talking about PC or Microsoft Store PC. We're talking about a video game console, the Xbox Series S and X. And this kind of hit hard in the rationality about the using the platform exclusivities as a lack of identities. If we are going to insist about that being a lack of identity, I think that the gaming industry has lost its identity. A few years ago, Square Enix said that exclusivity was detrimental for the business. That is why you will not see more platform exclusive, and Square Enix will go as multi-platform as possible. So I think that Microsoft adopting this kind of thinking or plans, and now surprisingly Sony kind of dial up now, not only launching games to PC but allowing a partner, because let's get a reminder here. Arrowhead Studio is not part of PlayStation Studio. The thing is that Sony invested heavily on Helldivers 2, that while Arrowhead Studio is not part of the PlayStation Studio umbrella, they are kind of attached or having Sony attached on important decisions. So I think that if the idea wasn't from Sony but from Arrowhead on having like a Helldivers 2 Xbox version, I think that if it's not an idea from Sony, Sony had to get their thumbs up or the approval to make things, because yeah, the game existed and is maintained probably because PlayStation is making a cut on the budget and doing some fundings, and of course maybe a good sharing of the profit for all the sales of the game. So there's that, and there's some rumors that Sony might be attempting to have the PlayStation logo attached in an Xbox game case. And I'm welcoming. I'm welcome it. I'm not afraid of this brave new world that the gaming industry is heading right now. Uh, I think it's for the best for the survival of the gaming. Unfortunately, this will not serve as a deterrence of the prices hiking that the gaming industry is serving, but I think that this is a brave new world. I think that if there ever been platform identity, I think that the gaming industry is more than ready to make this identity or this element to be called an identity. I think that we have seen the end of it. Which I think that one of the bad things that this could happen is that this kind of will force Nintendo to, at least in the short term, think about if they're heading to a crossroad, if they're decided to have like whole this game being a niche, which historically all Nintendo first studio game is a niche because you can only play Nintendo games with Nintendo hardware. Knowing Nintendo basically for decades, I don't think that they're gonna subdue so easily returning on publishing games. Nintendo is not strange on publishing games. The Legend of Zelda did landed on a non-Nintendo hardware. And what we know now as Super Mario originally was an Atari game, and Donkey Kong was an arcade. So I think that it's not a strange word or a first timer for Nintendo that we are kind of 40 plus years since the last time Nintendo ever published a game elsewhere from his hardware or without his hand grabs. I don't think that Nintendo is ready for talk about that, and I think that they're gonna do a one last stretch and keeping the niche formula. But hey, they began this about the price hiking the or the games that should cost $80 as a premium. So I think that this is kind of a situation when you said be careful what you ask for because you might get it. I think that this is the exact thing for Nintendo, opening the floodgate for having premium AAA games costing $80 for the consumer. So let me know in the comments what are your thoughts about all this development at Microsoft Gaming, Xbox, and do you agree that the platform identity is blurred or is just a thing that the gaming industry want to move on? And also, you can share all your experience if you have been playing Death Stranding 2 on the beach. For this and more gaming info, news, and more episodes of Continue News and Gaming, please hit the like, subscribe, and the notification bell for everything new that I bring in the future and don't miss anything. Also, if you're listening and watching this via Spotify, thank you very much for your support. This was Jesus from Jesus Gaming, Health and Success, and Happy Gaming.